Hey guys, I don't know if you know this about me, but I have a real passion for rescuing stuff out of the garbage. The main reason for that is doing home labbing can get really, really expensive really, really fast. And a common misconception is that you need like this really high-end hardware to do really cool networking and containerization and virtualization and Docker. And that's just all nonsense. In fact, I could probably take a computer from like 15 years ago and run almost everything I'm running right now without any loss. So it just it bothers me when I hear people talk about the fact that you need a ton of really cool stuff in order to make this work. So today I want to talk a little bit about what I would do if I was starting from nothing. So if you're one of these guys who has already gotten into this, but you're thinking about an upgrade, or you're just thinking about getting into this at all, this is generally the way I go about getting parts, building servers, finding computers, doing all those things. This is kind of my methodology. Now, I've written some articles on this already, so you'll see that in the blog. So there's an article called Sourcing Used Parts, one that's called General Parts Advice, another one called Building Your Own. I'm going to go over each of these articles one by one. So sourcing use, well, first what I want to talk about is where do I go to even get stuff? Before we even talk about like system architecture and design and integration, actually physically putting components together, what do I recommend for new people? If you're getting into this for the first ever time and you've never done this before and you have possibly no hardware, maybe you've got extra hardware lying around, the number one thing I recommend people do, and especially you'll see this in terms of general parts advice, is just get a desktop. Find an old desktop that's laying around because people don't even use desktops anymore. Everybody uses like iPads and laptops and like these little tiny mini PCs. No one uses desktops anymore. So you can find desktops that people are literally just throwing away. But if you can't find those, the number one place I start is going to be r/homelabsales. So when you go to r/homelabsales, the first thing I'll do when I get to this thread is I'll put this little FS in these square brackets up here. This stands for sale. So now I'm filtering everything in Homelab sales for just stuff that people are selling. Now, sometimes you might want to just type in free up here because people are definitely giving away a ton of free stuff if you're local to them and it doesn't cost them any money to ship. Or they'll say, hey, I'm giving away something for free, you just cover shipping. That happens quite commonly. So this is a really great community that I recommend that you kind of get plugged into. And I'll tell you, I'm active in this community. I've both bought and sold on Homelab sales. I think it's amazing. I've done some great, great stuff on here. I've gotten great equipment. My recommendation here is for buying always use Reddit messaging. And when you exchange money, do not use Zelle or something that's a one-way transaction. Use like PayPal and don't use PayPal friends and family. Some people will request that, but basically use something that's got some kind of um, service where in the event that something happens, you can complain to them and you can get your money back. If you use like Venmo or Zelle, if you send money, that's gone. If something happens and this guy just stiffs you, like you have no recourse. PayPal, you can complain to PayPal because they're an escrow service. And if something happens, PayPal will give you your money back. So always use something like PayPal when paying for anything on here, and use Reddit messaging, not Reddit chat. They're two different things. But anyway, I was scrolling through here, and it's going to take some scrolling. I'm not going to lie. Like you're not just going to open this up, type in FS in these square brackets, and the first thing you see is going to be perfect. I had to scroll for probably 3 or 4 minutes before I found something that was pretty good. But I found this post down here from 2 days ago. This guy is in Wisconsin, WI, and he's selling a whole bunch of stuff. So I clicked his post, and this is what it looks like. So he says all prices include shipping. Again, he wants us to do PayPal via invoicing, which is the way you want to go. This is a legit seller because he's PayPal invoicing. If you're worried about that, you could always search his name and see if anybody said anything about him. Um, Please reach out if you have questions. All right, so this is what he's got. So I'm going to show you guys the Imgur. So this is Imgur is if you don't know what Imgur is, this is basically a free place to post pictures on the internet. This is his post. This is what he has. So I'm going to start at the top. So he's got these kind of like mid-form PCs. He's got these it looks like monitors, all-in-one monitors. He's got these mid-form faster PCs, these kind of other kind of small-ish ones, and then he's got these big ones down here. Now, I will tell you personally, I have one of these. I have a Dell Optiplex, and I think mine's like a 7030. It's a little bit older than this one. The reason I wouldn't go for this right off the bat, or maybe even one of these little small guys, where are we at here? Like one of these smaller guys. Sometimes Dell makes an even smaller version of this, where it's like basically the size of like, I don't know, like a box of like half the size of a box of cereal. Basically, it's really really small. This is about the size of a box of cereal, about half the size, or maybe even a quarter the size. It's basically just like this little square right here. Those are cool if all you want to do is run Docker containers and maybe run Ubuntu on bare metal. I tend to specialize in TrueNAS, and the reason for that is I like keeping my data safe. Not saying you got to do that with everything, but like for a computer like this, and I have one of these, I'll tell you, I have enough space for about one or two hard drives. That's it. And for something like TrueNAS, I have to give up one of those hard drives to boot. So I can't even make a mirrored pool in something like this. So that's my frustration right now. So I'm not even using this for TrueNAS. I'm running Proxmox off of this, which I've already done another video on that I talked about. I have to upgrade this. Like I'm actually actively trying to get rid of this machine, but I'm too broke. So I wouldn't do this unless I'm planning on running just bare metal Docker containers on like Ubuntu, because it's actually a great machine to do that on. It's a great machine to experiment on. If you're like, hey, I've already got some stuff, I'm not worried about data loss, or whatever I'm doing is just test machine stuff anyway. If it dies, it dies. If you're in that boat, cool. Like pick one of these up. They're actually really, really power efficient. And they're really easy to use. I just threw a 2.5-inch SSD in mine, and that's what I'm running Proxmox off of. So they're kind of cool machines to do that. Um, but again, if I'm starting from nothing, this is probably not going to be my first machine, because my first machine I want to run TrueNAS on, because TrueNAS is kind of a great all-in-one system. And spoiler alert, I just checked out the next version of TrueNAS called Fangtooth, which is even going to get even better for virtualization management, which is the number one complaint right now on TrueNAS. So last year, the biggest complaint was that Docker couldn't run on the host, and they fixed that in Electric Eel. And now the biggest complaint is, hey, Proxmox is absolutely trouncing TrueNAS when it comes to virtualization. So they're going to release Fangtooth next year, which is the next version of TrueNAS that addresses that. So I'm playing with that now. There's going to be more to that to come, but I'm gonna that is to say, I'm trying to run TrueNAS. If I only get one machine, if I get one shot, I'm using TrueNAS as my operating system because I can do the most with it. So what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to look for something like this. And the reason I'm looking for something like this is going to give me expansion opportunity for hard drives. The biggest challenge I'm going to have with this is because these are Dells, it's not going to play nice with memory. It's not going to play nice with probably the power supply that's in it. It's probably a custom power supply and a custom motherboard. So whatever the power supply gives me and whatever space I have on the motherboard is probably all I'm going to get. Um, I'm going to talk more about how to go about doing this, but this is going to be my kind of first shot. So let's go back to his post. I'm going to scroll down here. These Dells. So here's what I'm looking for. So you're looking at all these specs, like, man, this just looks like a whole bunch of like Greek to me. Here's what I'm looking for. Let me see if I can come over to one of these specs. Okay. If you go to the build your own article in the blog, and I'm going to link all these things and all these tabs in the video description. You're going to see here, I've given you some general advice. So the CPU motherboard combination, this is kind of what I'm looking at. These CPUs right here go to this socket of motherboard, and this is when they're launched, and this is the chipset. The reason I did that is if you're building your own, you're going to need to know that. But for this purpose right here of saying I'm buying something that's already built, I'm looking for something like these CPUs. This is the Intel 10th gen, the 11th gen, the 12th gen, and the 13th gen. Now, I don't have to go with something as new as the 10th gen, and this was launched when 2020. So this is about 5 years old now. So I don't have to go something with something as new as the 10th gen. Now I will tell you that everything I build in my house is 10th gen. The reason for that is I have the most parts opportunity, availability, and best prices in and around the 10th gen. When I go older than that, and it's funny because if you don't know this, this is the way computer parts work. When computers come out and they're brand new, they're kind of high and expensive, and then they dip down as they get older and older, and they get cheaper and cheaper because new stuff has come out and replaced it. But eventually, their prices go back up again. So it follows this big U curve. And the reason the prices go back up again, they just don't keep dropping until they get to pretty much free, is because when things get older, they get harder to find. And just the basic laws of supply and demand say that if I'm looking for something that's an Intel 7th gen part, for example, and I'm looking for 7th gen motherboards, there's just not that many of them. Yeah, they're complete crap and I would probably wouldn't use them, but because there's just a limited supply, it's going to be more expensive to get an older motherboard and CPU than it probably will be to get a 10th gen, even though the 10th gen's 5 years old. So just be aware of that. But the thing I want to tell you is that when it comes to doing this, the number one thing people are going to do is run a media suite on this. So the number one thing people need is transcode, which is what I talk about here. Transcoding doesn't just start at 10th gen. In fact, it starts at 8th gen. It starts at 8th gen. So anything that says Intel i3, i5, i7 and starts with an 8 instead of a 10 will actually work. So let's look at his post here. So I see i3 4th gen, way too old, 7th gen, way too old. And this is the micro and mini PCs. This is the micro and mini PCs are the ones that look like the ones on the right here. These aren't the ones I want, but I'm just going to take a look and see what he has. And I don't see anything newer than 6th gen. Um, So that's not good. This is actually pretty decent. It's 2400 GE, but of course this one is sold. But if I was going to look at any of them, I'd look at this one. If you're looking at Ryzen chips, the ones with the G in it are the ones that have integrated graphics that can probably do transcode. I don't like them for transcode. I like Intel more, and I want to find something at least 8th gen or newer. So let's keep on scrolling. This is the small form factor PCs. He does have some available 8 gig RAM sticks. I wouldn't go with anything less than 16, so I'd probably pitch him and see if I can get another stick of RAM thrown in here. So right off the bat, I do see an eighth gen right here, and this is pretty perfect. This is a small form factor. I'm probably gonna want a 3470. Let me see here. This is an Inspiron. These are all Dell Inspiron. Are these all Inspirons? They are. I can't read the numbers on this, but like I'm looking for one of these on the left, so I would probably message this dude and see if I can figure out which one of these they are. But let's go back here. Um, It's not going to be the Optiplay. It's probably one of the Inspirons. This is probably going to be one of my target machines. If not this, I see a couple 8500s down here, which is really good. So any one of these three would probably work, or this one. And again, look at the price, $60, and he's got 5 of them. So this is probably the machine right here. That 3470 is probably this. Oh, maybe it's this because I count 5 here. Which ones does he have 4 of? Maybe this is them and it's a 7100 and it wouldn't work. So we're going to see. But the point is, I want you guys to get comfortable just going on a place like this and scrolling around and saying, hey, what do I see out there that's going to kind of fit what I want? So he's also got these Dell Optiplex Inspirons. We're going to see. It's one of these guys. But this is kind of what I'm looking for. And this price is not outrageous. Basically, if I had one of these machines, all I'm going to try and do is maybe throw a set of hard drives at him. I'm going to show you guys how to find those later. And that's really it because the CPU can do transcode. So I'm going to install TrueNAS, which is free. Probably see if I can get a cheap SSD used or maybe new because they're not that expensive anyway. It's just the boot drive. The TrueNAS boot drive should be the smallest SSD you can find, like literally 64 gigs, maybe 32 if you can even find one that old. A 64 gig. Let's look. Let's just check Newegg real quick. But again, we can go to Amazon if you wanted to. Let's look at components and storage. Out of the way. Let's look at SSDs, internal SSD. God, come on, out of the way. SSDs, internal SSDs, just to get an idea of what a brand new SSD is going to be. I want it to be a 2.5 inch, and I want it to be small. I want it to be like 240, like even under 240 gigs. Yeah, that's what I want. Do I have something smaller than that? Yeah, look at this. I'm going to uncheck all this stuff. You know what? Though? I'm gonna leave. That's a lie. I'm gonna leave because one of these, the 200 gig actually might be cheaper than the 64. That's crazy how that works. But like again, so we're just gonna sort this by the. I want to see the cheapest possible brand new hard drive I can get. Probably wouldn't buy that one, but it's literally $8. So again, and this is 128. That's what I mean. Like I was gonna look for 64s, but the cheapest hard drive on here is actually 128. If I was gonna find one that I actually like recognize, let me see if I can find a brand that I even recognize at this point. ADATA. So this is a brand that I actually recognize. $19. Verbatim also recognize them, 22 bucks. And again, these are all 128. So I'm glad I didn't actually uncheck the 128 boxes. I would have lost the opportunity to see these really cheap 128 gig drives. Considering it's just the boot drive, honestly, because it's just a boot drive, might consider buying 2 of these little crappy things. I don't even know what this is, but basically, I'd buy 2 of these for like what, $18 and put them in a RAID 1. This way, if one of them dies, I don't even lose my TrueNAS. But to be fair, I wouldn't even be worried about putting one of these on there as long as I backed up the config. This way, if it died, I'll just restore the config. But yeah, $8 for a brand new 128 gig SSD. That's how cheap these things are. So if I'm working with one of these machines right here, it's already got 8 gigs of memory. I'm going to pitch him for another 8 gig stick. I'm going to buy one of these crappy 2.5 inches or maybe 2 because they're dirt cheap. And then I'm going to find a pair of hard drives. Let's talk about that. So let's say this article is called Sourcing Used Parts. Let's come down here. eBay is a great place to go, and that's the first place I'm going to start. There are 2 sellers on eBay that I recommend you go to. This is Server Part Deals. If I'm looking for hard drives, this is where I'm starting. So let's come over here and let's go to the shop. We're going to go to hard, Taos Networking. We're going to go to drives. Okay, I want to find the lowest prices that he's got. He's got 600s. Nope, nope, nope. And again, this is how it works, guys. It's just a lot of scrolling. I'm not doing this in real time. I've not pre-selected this. The only one I pre-selected was this one from Homelabsales because I didn't want to see you guys just watching me scroll for 5 minutes. But here we go. These 12s are 120. So the goal here is to pay $10 or less per terabyte. So if I'm looking at a 12 terabyte drive, I want to pay less than $120 for it, give or take. So this drive right here, let's take a look at this. He's got more than 10 available. These are 12 gig Seagate Enterprise. These are perfect. So this is 120 per drive. I'd probably buy two of these. Again, if you're sitting and you're starting off, you're looking at that price tag and be like, dude, $250 plus the computer, plus it's gonna end up costing me like 300 or $400 to get this. Yeah, maybe it will, but maybe we start small. Maybe we don't do that. Maybe we start with just a single 12. One of the cool things about TrueNAS is I can put this in a stripe and then eventually buy another 12 and put that into a mirror without any data loss. So if you don't know that, that's a really cool way of like hacking it. I can start with TrueNAS with this $80 computer over here, this like 80 or $60 computer with an extra 8 gigs of memory in it, this $8 SSD, and probably one of these drives, right? If later I want to expand, I can use the same exact 12 or another 12 that I find later and plug it in and say, hey, TrueNAS, I want you to convert the pool that I made out of the single 12 into a RAID, into a mirror. And TrueNAS can do that without having for you to copy your data or just delete your pool or do any of that. It's one of the only pools you can convert from one to the other. So I don't want you to think you can do it with RAID Z1 or RAID Z2 or going like mirrors into RAID Z1. That doesn't work any other way. The only way that works is by going from a stripe to a mirror of drives of the same capacity. That's the only way that works. Technically, you can go with drives of greater capacity, but you'll lose out on the higher capacity drive because you're limited to the smaller capacity drive. But again, I'm just talking about what I would do. If this is me from the jump, I'd probably get a pair of these. If not, maybe just one of these, and I'll start out if I'm really, really broke. Let's take a look at sourcing use part. I want to see Go hard drive real fast. See if he's got anything different. Again, this is just a lot of shopping, and it's kind of fun because I like this. I like doing this. So let's look at 3.5-inch drives. Okay, let's look at cheapest. Let's look at cheapest. 500s, terabytes. Here we go. So he's got an 8 at 100. I'd like to pay 80 for an 8, but that's not terrible if I was limited in price. But again, to just go up, what is this? $25, like 20 again, I'm trying to pay about 120 for this. It's 125, so really Server Parts Deal had a better job here, had a better deal here, but this guy's got 8. So if I was limited, if I was really, really cash strapped, I'm like, dude, I can't even make the $20 jump to go from 98 to 120. These would probably be all right, I think. I'm not even sure if these are the kind of drives. Let me see here. I don't know how I feel about this drive. I'd probably try and make the jump to the 120s. Now, with the hard drives, the one thing I want to tell you guys you're looking for, let me see here. I have there's another article here. I'm going to show it to you guys. It's going to talk about hard drives here. Let's talk about stored RAID arrays. I think it's this one. Yeah, this is going to talk about the difference between SMR and CMR drives. So long story short is you want to use CMR. You do not want to use SMR. CMR is way better for true NAS and any kind of NAS you use, and this is going to be the kind of brands we're looking for. We're looking for Western Digital Red Pros, Red Plus, Iron Wolves, or Exos drives. So because that's a Barracuda, I don't even know how I feel about that drive. I don't think the other one was. I don't. Maybe Server Parts Deals was a Barracuda, but I wouldn't use a Barracuda. I'd probably see if I can go up. A lot of times they'll say enterprise, but that's just enterprise capacity. I need like these right here, this Western Digital 14. This is a lot better. This white label here is probably a much, much better drive for what we're trying to do. But again, do some shopping, look around, see what you can find. So that's if you're looking for like a complete package that's put together, that's kind of the direction I would go. I'd look and see who's giving away hardware, who's giving away desktops for like really good cheap prices. I might try and raid my garage or my neighbor's garage. I'll just keep an eye on things, man. There's a lot of different opportunities because people get rid of this stuff all the time. Businesses going out of business. I will tell you that I got the biggest haul ever. True story. I'm walking through my buddy's job one day, and I'm walking through his office. He just started a new job, and he's giving me the tour of his office. He's really proud that he started this new job. And I walk past this room, and it's got, I'm talking floor to ceiling enterprise gear just sitting around on shelves, not plugged in. It's a storage unit. It's like a storage closet that is just servers and switches and all kinds of stuff floor to ceiling. I took one look in there. I said, "Hey, man, what's with all this stuff?" And he said, "Yeah, we just moved to the cloud. We're getting ready to junk that." And now I'm going to tell you this, if you guys don't know this, a business like that has to pay to have somebody come in and pull that stuff out. So immediately I told my friend, I said, "Hey man, tell your boss I'll haul all this out of here for free. You don't call the recyclers, don't pay those guys because businesses have to pay recyclers to come take their garbage away, especially tech garbage." So I told him, I'll pitch that to your boss, and he did, and his boss was like, "No, if you want to haul this thing away for free, take it." I literally filled the back of a RAV4 to the point where I couldn't see out of the rear view mirror with stuff. Sold a good chunk of it on eBay, some of it on Homelab sales, kept a bunch of it, which is what one of my Proxmox machine is working on now. And when I started doing some side gigs at helping people with IT, I would sell them the stuff I rescued for their businesses. So I was basically selling them stuff that I got for free that I rescued from this company's garbage. That kind of stuff happens eventually. So give it enough time and you'll come across some stuff. If you guys look at my storage room now, I've definitely got stuff down there that I don't need that I'm just hanging on to just for a rainy day. But anyway, that's what I would do if I was just starting out and I'm looking for something that's already put together. But what if I want to build something completely from the ground up? Let's take a look at how we're going to go about doing that. The first place, if you, so here's I've written some articles here. This is general parts advice. This is my general advice to people building from the ground up. If you're thinking, hey, I want to get a really cool server rack and start working in all these kind of like enterprise level stuff, that's cool. You might want to be the guy that's like, hey, I want to get a rack. I want everything to be rack mount. I want to use enterprise grade equipment. I was that guy. Um, I kind of regretted that in the beginning, and I'll tell you why. If you're looking for rack mount gear, just for getting a desktop and tipping it sideways and making it rack mountable like doubles the price of everything in it for no reason. It's the exact same parts, but it's just more expensive. So it's one of those things where I'm like, I don't know if that's how I would go again. I would probably recommend if you're first starting out and you're building something from the ground up, you probably start with an ATX kind of case. So a regular ATX motherboard and an ATX desktop case using all desktop parts. And you think, hey, that's not really a great plan for a server, but I'm like, dude, that is what a server basically is. It's a computer. A server could be anything. A server could be a Raspberry Pi. It could be a laptop that you don't close the lid on. It could be an old desktop gaming computer or just an old computer in general. It doesn't have to be something fancy and rack mount. So if you're doing that, I recommend you read this page, the general parts advice. I always recommend guys go with the Intel chips 10th gen or newer. The reason for that is you're not going to need a graphics card. The Intel 10th gen or newer built-in GPU can do transcode. If you're looking for that, make sure you read this paragraph. Your CPU model cannot end in F. The reason is the ones that end in F don't have a GPU built in. But all the ones that don't end in F, just the i3 10100, 10105, 10 whatever, they all have a built-in GPU that can do 4K transcode just fine. So if you want to save yourself some money, get an i3 10th gen. I love the 10100. I use it in most of my builds. It's a 4-core, 8-thread CPU. It's got like 3.5 gigs or something like that of speed, gigahertz of speed. And the transcode works totally great. And this part right here, you can find on eBay used for about 80 bucks or less. So the CPU alone is like that. Um, get a motherboard that'll sit. You can get AMD if you want. It's fine. Again, I recommend regular ATX motherboards. It's mainly because I think they're the easiest for expansion. An ATX motherboard is going to give you PCI slots if you do want to add like an HBA later. It's probably going to have a bunch of SATA ports for enough drives to start you out with. It's going to have the opportunity to do standard ATX power supplies, and these are all parts that are the easiest to find. ATX desktop components are the easiest group of parts to find, and I'm trying to make this easy for everybody. If you want the simplest, like least path of resistance to building a computer, a desktop ATX motherboard with an Intel CPU is like going to give you the widest range of parts across multiple different places to find them and the easiest like way to put together. So that's what I recommend you do. DDR4 is what I recommend because it's cheap. If you can get DDR5 cheaper with your motherboard, that's cool. The big RAM argument is ECC versus non-ECC. I'm not trying to start a fight here, um, but I will tell you that I use regular desktop non-ECC memory. Again, the reason for that, and DDR4, the reason for that is availability. Availability is right now DDR4 non-ECC desktop memory It's like regular like SD RAM 288 pin, I think is the standard right now, is the easiest RAM to find. It's everywhere and it's compatible with almost everything. Again, don't make this hard on yourself. If you get DDR5, your motherboard has to do DDR5, and that makes things just a little bit more complicated. So don't if I had the option, I'm not trying to do that to myself. I'm trying to find memory that's going to be easy to find, especially if memory breaks. I've had that happen. I went to go reboot my server one day, it didn't turn back on. Why? One of the memory RAMs went bad. The last thing I want to do is have to find an obscure piece of hardware right when my server dies. Because I used regular DDR4 RAM, I was able to get DDR4 RAM in like an hour because it's just so easy to find. That's what I recommend. If you want to do transcode, this is the exact card that I have, the Quadro P400. But again, if you got an Intel 10th Gen CPU, just use that. Don't spend more money on a dedicated card. You don't need it. You don't need it. The hard drives posted here. I just showed it to you. Cases, find a regular ATX case. So your question might be like, hey, I don't know what fits together. So that's what this page is for, the building your own. This shows you which CPU goes with which socket and what motherboard chipsets actually hold that. So this is like a little cheat sheet here. So if you're looking for an i3-10100, right, which is what I use. This is the exact chip I have in one of my machines, and I have one of these in my machines, a 10100, a 10105. It means I'm looking for a motherboard that's got a 1200 socket, and I'm looking for a chipset that's one of these. Any one of these chipsets will work. So if I go on eBay, for example, because this is, if I was actually going to do this, that's exactly what I would do. I would start with Intel i3 10100, like that. And I don't want the Fs. So see how it says, this is bad. I don't want that. I'm actually going to do something like this. There we go. The minus F means now I'm not going to see anything with F. So I want to find buy it now, so I'm not here to do a whole bunch of auctions over a whole bunch of time. Lowest first. Let's just see what's out there. Yep, that's pretty amazing. $45. The problem with this one is it doesn't come with a little fan. But the fan, like, so I'm going to show you this little thing right here. Hold on. Not that. That. This heatsink right here. This is the built-in heatsink. Oh, not the built-in. This is the one that usually comes with it in this little box. This chip doesn't have that, it looks like. Where are you? It doesn't look like this has this. Let's take a look. It's just the CPU. But to be fair, I could probably get that little box fan cooler for like 10 bucks. I'd like to find one that had both. But dude, $45 for this chip is absolutely wonderful. And this is the low speed one. This is the one that's even more power efficient. The T is a little bit slower. I think the boost goes just as high. The base speed I think is lower, but it's more power efficient. So that's really cool. Like, just literally it took me 3 seconds and I found a chip that's perfect for what I'm looking for. So now let's find an LGA 1200 motherboard to fix, because that's what I need. If I was to buy that chip, I want an LGA 1200 motherboard. I want to serve price and shipping lowest first. Buy it now. And I don't want any of these ones. So these are all the ones that are like got ripped out of Dell's. I want to find like an actual name brand. So right here, let's start here, H410. So you see this H410? Let's go back to my little cheat sheet over here. Okay. These are the chipsets I want. You'll notice that H410 is not in there because that's not what I'm looking for. So let's keep going. And let's see if I can find something that's not an H410 chipset. H410, H410. Ah, right here. That's parts only though, so I should probably filter that out, but it's all right. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. Parts only, right here. It's from Hong Kong, so the shipping's going to take a while, but I'll be honest, I don't care. $57. So what is that? Like basically a little over 100 bucks. 45 and 57. Yeah, so that's basically going to be in and around 100 bucks, maybe plus tax. But this is exactly what I'm looking for. Let's take a look at this. The only reason I wouldn't take a board like this is it's not ATX. This is a micro ATX. This is MATX. Let's come back here actually. Let's do some more filters. Let's narrow this down. So I want to do regular ATX, and I want the condition to not be for parts. Let's do open box. Let's do certified, and let's do used. You guys gotta get really good at using these filters. Now, I can do new too, but I'm not gonna see anything probably. But I don't wanna discount that. Somebody might be stupid and giving something away way cheaper than I think so. I could probably narrow this down by, here we go, H510. Nope, I don't like the H510. This is great though. See, he listed it as pre-owned, but it's 4 parts. People on eBay, man, learn how to list your stuff. Pre-owned. This is looking good. 70 bucks, B560 chipset. B560, right in our wheelhouse. Let's come here. This is perfect. The seller's got 99% review. He's got sold almost 2,000. Yeah, so this dude's probably legit. Let's take a look at some more pictures. I don't see any bent pins. That's what you're looking for. So whenever you see somebody post a picture of this, like, why are they showing that without the CPU? What you're looking for here is bent pins. If even one of these pins is bent, this whole motherboard is trash. So this guy is showing you this, the close up here so you can really zoom in, and I could blow this up more, but basically I can look here and I want to see nice, even, perfect rows. I don't want to see anything out of place. And it looks really good. Let's come out over here. So yeah, we got our NIC port right here, which is all I care about because we need to run this off a hardline. Um, yeah, we got tons of PCI expansion. Can I see the ports? Let's come over here. How many SATA? It looks like that block right there is going to give me 6 SATA ports for hard drives. This is looking really great. This would be a perfect motherboard. So this board at 70 bucks plus that chip, um, this chip right here, heatsink for that, and then some drives and a power supply. That's basically it. That would be my build. I could find a cheap desktop case, but that's the hardest part. The hardest part is getting RAM, CPU, and motherboard in one thing. That's the combination. CPU, motherboard, RAM is what I'm trying to build. So everything else is pretty easy. Let's come back out here. Let's do another search for just DDR4 RAM. Okay, here we go. 4x8. So that's not a bad thing. 4x8 is going to fill up all my slots and make it harder to expand in the future. So that's why I kind of like going with 2x16, but 85 bucks for that. 2x16. Yeah, so it's a little more expensive than that. So if I was strapped for cash, I would just do a 4x8 for 50 bucks. If I was like, hey, I got a little more money to play with and I want to leave room for expansion later, I might jump to the 85 and then just do 2x16. And the reason for that is, again, the motherboard we were just looking at, it's got 4 RAM slots. So if I want to eventually jump to 32, this gives me the option to do that. And that's actually exactly what I did in my TrueNAS server. I started out with 2x16 and then I eventually bought 2 more 16 of the same stick. And so the Corsair is just a little bit more expensive. If I did more searching, I would probably spend more time when I'm not live, doing a video to find something a little bit better. But this would work. I would probably start with something like this. And you'll see here that based on our search, there's probably other things here that we can do. This is another great thing you can do with eBay. A lot of times you'll see bundles. So for example, let's come back up here to eBay. And let's do electronics. Let's do computers network. So I might just say, hey, I want to find a board, chip, and RAM combination all at once. So let's find, and they do that here. They have combinations. So here we go. Motherboard and CPU combos. This is exactly kind of what I'm looking for. So let's do buy it nows. And again, you guys can do auctions if you want. I'm just going to do buy it now just to kind of do this. And we're going to sort this by lowest price, which I probably shouldn't have done because it's going to show me so much. Look at all this crap. I hate it when it does this. Let's go back, and I'm not going to sort by lowest price. I'm just going to see what's coming up for the what they call best match. All right, so this is a board with a CPU of 4000. This is the wrong generation. AM3. So I would probably just scroll around here. Like, look at this, for example. This is 225, and this is too new. This is actually too good. It's a B660 with an Intel 12th gen. I don't need that, but check this out, though. He's got 4 8s in this. This is actually not awful, right? So he's got the backplane. He's got 32 gigs of memory. It's a smaller board. It's not a full-size ATX, but because it's a 12400, I don't need the card. I see what? One, two. I see 4 spots. So this little thing right here, this black knob, this is SATA ports, this is SATA port. So I would have enough here to do an M2. I see 2 different PCI slots plus an X1, 4 drives. This is actually not awful. I'm not gonna lie. I said this is too much. I completely take back what I said. This is a nice little combination. You're getting a good motherboard, pretty new Intel part, 32 gigs of RAM. The only thing you have to do to this is put it in a case and give it a power supply and find some drives. You could probably do some pretty good damage starting with something like this. I'm kind of surprised. I'm impressed. So let's come back out here real fast. Where was I? I was down here. i5 6500 is too old. That's tempting, man. That's really tempting. But just scroll around, guys. Just get used to just shopping. And I would, again, people list stuff every day. You can set up alerts for when people list new stuff. Or just come here and do a lot of searching every day. The biggest problem is you're gonna get older chips like this, like the 4460. No good. I don't want to invest in something that old. I want to invest in something that's probably 10th gen or newer, maybe as old as ninth or 8th gen, but really I'm looking for entry level 10th gen. Too much too. 11.7. This is a great combination, but I wouldn't throw that much money at a server because that chip is overkill. The CPU is barely used in a server, so don't get caught up thinking you need a really really fast high end CPU or anything like this, like the dual sockets. Like all you're gonna do is suck up electricity. This is super excellent right here. Let's take a look at this. This guy's giving this away with this is the 3000G, so this G means it's got the onboard. It's got an 8 gig of RAM. It's got a single stick of 8 gig in it. So this motherboard and CPU together, I'm throwing out that memory. That memory is useless. But just the CPU, the MSI B450 with this chip is definitely worth 120. I would consider that and then build on top of this with better memory. But it's a full-size ATX. I see the slots. I see tons of X1, 2 PCIs. Looks like it 6 SATA. Yeah, this is again really great. So anyway, this is how I start building stuff up. If you're worried about compatibility, I want to show you guys something here. This is called PCPartPicker. This is amazing. You're going to want to come to the builder, and this is automatically going to spec parts for you. So let's say here I want to choose a CPU, and I want to choose a 10100. I just want to do a straight 10100. Right? Now I want you to ignore this pricing. This is the pricing if you were to buy something brand new off Amazon right now. I don't want you to worry about that because again, you're going to search eBay or you're going to search used places, or maybe you have enough money to say I just want to buy something new. That's cool. This comes with a cooler. I'm not going to choose a CPU cooler. Here's the cool part. When I click choose a motherboard, it's only going to show me motherboards that are compatible. This is this compatibility filter. These are all the boards that are compatible with that chip. So if you're looking online at separate boards and separate chips, and you're like, hey, someone's trying to sell me this board for like 30 bucks, and I don't know if it's going to work with my CPU, come in here and look it up. Let's look up, for example, like a B450. See, I'm not seeing any of those. Let's try a B550. Now, let's hold on. That's interesting. So notice that it's should be filtering by that. All these filters are actually turned on. So let's see here. See how these are grayed out? That means it's not going to be compatible with what I have. So these will be compatible. B460, B560, the H chipsets, which I don't want. The Qs, which I don't want. The Zs are better than the B. So the B is kind of like the entry level, and the Z is kind of like the high end. So it's telling me that B460 is what I'm looking for. So let's say I find a B460 motherboard. Let's just filter by all B460s. So this is all the B460s, and if I knew it was an Asus or a Gigabyte or MSI, I could filter further. But this is all the motherboards that are compatible with the chip that I chose. So again, I'm just going to throw a dart here, and I want full-size ATX form factor. There we go. These are all the ATX B460s that are out there that'll be compatible with that chip. So I'm just going to throw a dart and say, hey, I want to use this one. Perfect. No prices available because it's old as dirt and it's probably can't find anything new. Doesn't matter. It just shows me compatibility. I know these two parts are going to work together. Same with memory. This is going to show me all. Now that I've chosen a motherboard, it's going to show me all the memory that'll fit in that motherboard. There's going to be thousands. I mean thousands of memory chips, 57 pages. The reason I like looking at this is I'm going to come up here and probably search directly by the CAS number. So for example, I'll look at this one first. Let's come over here to M. Let's go to Newegg and look at this chip. Look at these memory. All right, so this is what I'm going to look for. See this number right here? This tells me the exact number of the memory. So I come over here. If I'm on eBay or I'm somewhere, I'm like, hey, I don't know if it's going to fit. I don't want to use this as a search term. This is way too generic. This is the exact model number. This is what I want to use as a search term. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to come back and I'm going to say, hey, show me this module. I found this module. Will it fit? And because it came up on this page, yes, there are 4 compatible Corsair modules that will all fit that follow this that are this model. So if I'm on eBay and I find a model of memory, so let's come up here for example. Here. Will this fit? This is exactly what I need. I need this number. Yeah. This number right here. I would come over here to my PC part picker. Come over here and filter. Oh, did I just find the exact same one? Hold on. Okay, let's filter. That's funny. That's the exact same one. I did not mean to do that. Again, I'm doing this live. I didn't pre-script any of this. So anyway, yeah, that's a really cool way to see if whether or not, and I can find this. They say this memory new is 40 bucks, which also gives me a cool thing because I can see, hey, I can buy this new for 40 bucks on Amazon. What is it going for eBay for? $40 here, 65. But he's got 4 of them. So technically, if I was to buy 4 of them, it'd be 80. So this is actually a pretty good deal. I'm actually getting $15 off. So again, that's just it's a good way to kind of give me an idea of whether or not it's a good price on eBay. I'm not doing any other thing here, mainly because I just want to see the board, the board, the chip, and the RAM combination. That's the hardest thing to kind of make fit together. Once those 3 are together, almost everything else is universal. Power supplies, 100% get those used. Those things are good for almost ever, like literally almost ever. A regular ATX power supply, I'm going for probably somewhere around 650 or maybe lower because I don't need a ton of power to just power the server. Servers do not suck up a ton of power. Hard drives suck up a little bit, but it's not that bad. I like Cooler Master and Corsair. EVGA is also great, but let's just say I'm going to start with these 2 brands. I want to find them like that. That's fine. Like this would probably work just fine. $40. That's a stock photo, so that's not the actual thing, but it's fine. Is it used? It probably is used. That'd probably work. Don't kill yourself with the power supply. It's not that serious. Just don't buy one of these things. Find one that actually looks like something like this, like the Corsair TX 650. This is a great PSU. I actually had one of these in one of my other machines. These are fine. He's got all the plugs, and it's not modular, so I don't have to worry about losing anything. It'd be nice if it was modular, but then I'm always worried, like, hey, are you sending me all the cables? But this will be fine. $50. This will work totally fine. Cases, find any case you can. Literally any case you can. Do not get hung up on trying to find something crazy. Um, a mid or a full case. Let's look at full cases just because I'm saying, hey, eventually I might want to throw more hard drives at this. Um, let's look at ATX full towers. So no price and lowest shipping. Yeah, it does not have to be anything fancy. You do not need RGB or anything like that. $80 with free shipping, probably. I'm probably want to do that. We can do ATX mid-size as well because the full size would be better for expanding hard drives in the future. Let's just look at some mid-sizes and see if I can get something cheaper. Yeah, like this is considered a mid-size, but it's probably got plenty of space. I don't even know what this brand is, but again, it doesn't have to be anything crazy. You can rescue something out of the garbage. You can use an old one if you have it. Nothing fancy here. So that's kind of how I would start by putting things together. That gives you an overview of if I'm going to buy something that's already been put together versus I'm going to put something together for myself. This is pretty much the way I'd start. And this is kind of the way I go about doing it for myself. I almost, and I say almost, I mean literally never at this point pay for new parts. Don't do that. Old parts work just as good as new parts. They're cheaper. And considering that this is probably a hobby for most people, don't get sucked into paying thousands of dollars to build a super awesome rack like you see some of these other YouTubers have. I will tell you, if you want to see what's going on here, if you think this is like, oh yeah, so the other sourcing use part pays, there's other things here. If you look at a micro center, if you have a local store, recyclers, there's a bunch of other good advice on here. But let's come over here. You guys want to see? This is an older picture of my rack, but I'll show you. All right, so this is kind of what my rack looks like now with some stuff blurred out. This was free. I got this out of the garbage. This rack I actually did buy new, and that's probably my biggest regret was buying this new because people give these things away on Homelab sales. If you sit on Homelab sales for like a month, I guarantee you'll find people giving away racks for nothing, literally nothing. Um, this is the computer that I use. So it's a Roswell like 4500L. That case I got used off a hardware swap or something like that, or Homelab sales from a guy. This I can't tell you about. This is a work thing. It's basically a cloud. Oh no, hold on, wait, what is this? Yeah, this is a cloud switch. I use it for work. Um, this is my 10 gigabit switch. I got this. I got my company to pay for this, but I got this used for like $200. Knew they're much more expensive because it's 10 gigabit. This was like $10, and I've since replaced it with again another part that I got off of Homelab sales. I replaced this with a 48 port 1 gigabit switch that I got for $20 off of Homelab sales. That's pretty much my rack. And again, this is one of the things that I rescued out of the garbage. This is running Proxmox for me right now. That's my whole setup. So you guys think I'm doing something super fancy? This is a hand-built machine that I use the same techniques I just showed you for. Everything in this machine right here came from eBay. Everything. all used, all cheap. Um, this I got somebody else to pay for, but even that I got used. The thing I replaced this with was used off of HomeLabsales. This was rescued from the garbage. This was a gift that was rescued from the garbage. That's that's my whole rack. It's really not that fancy. It probably looks really cool for some people, but if you were here and you saw it in person, and you actually walk through it component by component, it's like it's really not all that. It's not all that fancy. But I just hope that gives you guys kind of an idea of the way I go about doing things and the way that I recommend you go about doing things to kind of keep it relatively affordable, I should say. This isn't going to be super dirt cheap, but my recommendation is the longer you spend on forums like this, where you're just looking for good deals, looking at eBay for just stuff that comes up, the longer you wait, the better of a deal you're going to find. The challenge is trying to find stuff in a rush. If something breaks, I'm like, I have to replace this now. I'm kind of going to have to pay for whatever's on the market at the time. But if I know that I'm trying to rebuild my Proxmox server and I'm like, all right, the first thing I'm looking for is a good cheap motherboard, a good cheap CPU, I'll probably wait a month before I make a buy because a good CPU like the one that we found before, that like 10100T for like $40, that's great. Like that's probably one of the best prices I've seen in a CPU in a while. So before I was getting stuck, they were kind of in the 50s and 60s. That's the lowest I've seen. If I had been patient enough to wait, I probably would jump on that right now and say, all right, now I got a CPU. Now I'm going to wait, and for the next month, I'm going to search for motherboards, or maybe I'll search for combinations like the other ones I found right there, and just see what I can find that's kind of cool. The longer you spend, the more likely you're going to find somebody that's listing something for less than what it's worth. And because that does actually happen, and it happens frequently, it happens every single month. But you got to be one of the first guys, because there's guys like me where I'm searching eBay. If I'm looking to upgrade, I'm there every day. So if you're not there every day, I'm going to see it first and I'm going to buy it. So just know, like, it depends on how diligent you're willing to be, how much time you want to put into doing some shopping, or if you're like, hey, actually, my budget is a little more flexible. I don't want to sit around and just check eBay every day for a month. If I see something even remotely close to my price range, I'm just going to snatch it. Do it. Just do it. So I just hope that helps you guys out, just to see some of the cool resources that are out here for stuff. I would recommend is I'm going to link all these in the video description. Read some of these articles. There's some really cool advice here and some stuff that'll help you if you're kind of lost or you don't know what to do. So I hope that helps.